The most disastrous celebrity product launch in history. Insiders are revealing to me the true story of how Meghan Markle failed to launch a new lifestyle brand, even with the support of Netflix. Her billionaire proposition now lies in tatters, and today we're going to go through the full disaster of the flop launch of First American Riviera Orchard, and then As Ever, plus, of course, alongside that, the total catastrophe of With Love Meghan. We'll do that with editor of the Royal News Network, Brittany. But first, Jan Moir has been summing up the feelings of many in the Daily Mail on this, writing, the more we see of Meghan's As Ever brand, the more baffling it becomes. It's just a few tea time products, tarted up with the Duchess's oddly menacing calligraphy. And that's not even the strangest part. She writes, Meghan's brand finally launched in April. After a year of misfires, hastily unveilings, relaunches, renamings, legal problems, and jam-based pickles. And now, after 6 months in business alongside 2 Netflix TV series of With Love Meghan to help her subtly promote the goods and her good self, we have at last glimpsed the extent of her commercial ambition and depth of her dreams. In short, we finally have the measure of Meghan, being her authentic self, sans tights, and free of the pesky restrictions of her former royal life. I'm using this as a platform to share joy, she said recently, to share more of myself, to share tips in my life and have fun. Yet the more we see of As Ever, the more baffling this brand becomes. What is it all about? I ask myself, who is it really for? Even at this early stage, it boasts an unusually insubstantial product range, a selection of non-essential. The flower sprinkles are a cute, if wearying idea. I'm just being polite, I hate them, but As Ever is essentially all froth and garbage. Humdrum tea time products, tarted up in luxury packaging, with labels featuring the Duchess's oddly menacing calligraphy. There are now around 10 items in the range, including a 14.5% proof rosé wine, a crepe mix, a shortbread mix, the aforementioned sprinkles, 3 types of tea, raspberry jam, and the newest addition, please contain your excitement, a jar of marmalade, or our newest signature fruit spread, as Meghan likes to call it. Who buys this stuff? The Duchess described her demographic as perhaps people who aspired to her lifestyle, admirers who wanted a piece of her. So the pricing is key, she said, and went on to reminisce with one interviewer about being a poor child growing up in Los Angeles. Oh God, here we go again, who worked in a yogurt shop and had to save her treats. She imagines a core As Ever customer being a 15-year-old girl who can afford the hero product raspberry jam at $9 and maybe uses the empty jar afterwards for a candle or for pencils in her desk.
The billionaire dream is dead. It's completely delusional. We've just watched the most chaotic celebrity product rollout in years. 3 brand names, 2 TV tie-ins, and still no clear identity. Insiders tell me the plan was simple: launch a lifestyle empire, ride Netflix heat, and sprint to billionaire status. The reality? A confused shop window, limp sales signals, and a brand even superfans can't explain. Tonight, the full disaster, and the hard numbers that prove Meghan is never becoming a billionaire off this.
Oh, lovely jam jar for my pencils. Thank you, kind lady. Any chance of a 6pence for me? What on earth is it that empowers Meghan to believe that admiring teenage girls want to express their devotion to her through the purchase of raspberry jam? Narcissism? Delusion, or rock-solid marketing research? She must have her reasons, even if she is not exactly Taylor Swift. Such a scattergun approach to business. Podcast series come and go. Initiatives are launched, they're never heard of again. Suggests either the Duchess has not been given quality guidance or fails to heed the expert advice of others. Netflix is her partner and investor in both her TV show and brand, but she is firmly in charge. It's my baby. All creative decisions end up with me, she has said. So she has her own team and she has the last word. But is that a good or a bad thing? Once upon a time, the Duchess of Sussex was a woman who wanted to change the world for the better. She still does. But now the focus seems to be on something far more prosaic, capitalizing on her fame by marriage to influence consumer behavior. Everyone is trying desperately to elevate these as-ever products into the sublime. But the truth is that they are nothing special, and it is hard to see what would encourage repeat custom. The Duchess believes passionately in her brand and what she sees as her own authenticity, but not everyone agrees. Many criticized her television series as a fiesta of fakery made in a kitchen that wasn't hers, filmed with best friends she had only just met, featuring recipes that were not original, and eliciting a confession from Meghan that she doesn't even like baking very much. She wants to go global with As Ever, but how much international demand will there be for, say, the new marmalade, which went on sale this week at £6.70p per jar and hasn't sold out? Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network, has been chronicling the launch of American Riviera Orchard into As Ever. And Brittany, look, I have spoken to many people behind the scenes who say Jan Moir is right. This is 100% on Meghan Markle. All of it. Brittany, all of it. She makes the decisions. She tells Netflix what to do. She is the chief executive. She failed to hire anyone with the correct experience, and there was absolutely no sense of proper market research done. This was all based on a gut feeling. And Brittany, it has become, according to business experts, the worst celebrity brand launch in history. How did she get it so wrong?
Well, Meghan, Dan, doesn't know anything about marketing, business, what people want. She's too narcissistic, and not like narcissistic in the productive way. She's like self-obsessed. Her whole bit in the recent Bloomberg interview where she's saying, oh, a 15-year-old girl will want to buy my jam. And I'm like, what 15-year-old girl buys jam? That's what they tell their mom to buy at the supermarket. It's just completely and utterly delusional. And this is why the brand is failing so badly, because she has no concept of what people want, and she's dipping into an overly saturated space without a single product that is proprietary or interesting. All of them are generic. All of them are things you could get at the supermarket. None of them are particularly good. The peppermint tea tastes like toothpaste. It's awful. And it's just baffling how she could get this so wrong. But this is Meghan Markle. We've heard endlessly. She doesn't take advice. She can't listen to criticism. And if you are an entrepreneur or a business person, you have to be able to listen to your market. And the thing is, because of Meghan's scarcity tactic, she had very little data, and everything is being floated by her Uber fans. So she was never getting good feedback from people anyways. I think this brand is going to 100% fail. I would not be surprised at all as if it doesn't even last 5 years. I mean, I wouldn't even say it would last 2 or 3 years at this point. She needs more products, more interesting products. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen, honestly.
It totally is. So Brittany, let's rewind, because of course, this started with the launch of a completely different brand, something called American Riviera Orchard. And again, this was a Meghan rushed job, and it turned out to be a botched job because none of even the most basic copyright was in place. And Brittany, I am told that again, this was Meghan believing that she could just railroad through what were actually very obvious problems that even someone pretty basic should have been able to see, which is that copywriting names of locations, of geographical areas is virtually impossible.
The writing was on the wall all over the place with this. It was also way too long. American Riviera Orchard, it kind of jumbles together. It doesn't flow very well. And so from the very beginning, like even marketing people, and I was saying this from the front, it was a bad name from the jump. And she didn't do any research to see if she could even trademark it in the first place. And of course, what she did, which was entirely stupid, is not only claim the name, but go and send strawberry jam to famous friends to have them promote a brand that she didn't end up using. And to those who went along with this before the brand was like out there, I mean, shame on you. And I'm sure some of them are embarrassed that they promoted something that didn't exist. I mean, this is so blunderously bad. And she tried to walk away from it as if it was like, oh no, it just didn't work. It's fine. It's like, no, this is unbelievably stupid, in my opinion. She has multiple lawyers and people she could hire to tell her this was a bad idea, but she disregards all advice and she just plows through. And then she is embarrassed, and she should be, because this was a catastrophic mess.
As ever, as never, why the billionaire plan collapsed. Let's rewind. First came American Riviera Orchard. Pretty logo, glossy jars to famous friends, with no lockdown trademarks, and a name that was always going to be a legal headache. The fix? A scramble rebrand to As Ever, while labels, socials, and storylines were already out in the wild. That killed momentum on day one. Cut to With Love, Meghan Season 1. Perfect chance to funnel viewers to products, right? Except there were no real products to buy. Scarcity only works when the thing you're hoarding is irresistible. Here, it looked like there wasn't anything ready. Then Season 2 lands. Plus a new email list, new hero items, and still a murky pitch. Teas, mixes, jam, marmalade, sprinkles, a rosé, all generic, all available anywhere. Without a single "you can only get this here" hook, even friendly press asked the fatal question, what is this brand?
Absolutely, because this was when it first emerged that actually she was driving this. She was the chief executive officer. She didn't want someone else to take the advice. Now, actually, Brittany, there were things if Meghan hadn't been in such a rush that she could have done that could have been cute and clever. I mean, she has spoken in interviews. I think it was with the influencer, the British influencer who she spoke to, where she said actually, to begin with, this was actually going to be a cute little thing where she made her own jam at home and just sent it out to her friends. But Brittany, I've been told that was a lie. That was never the plan. This was always meant to be the jumpstart to a much bigger brand, because it would have been much, much more sensible, and she would have had much, much more buy-in if it had just been a cute little thing where she was making these batches of jam and she sent them to the celebrities, and then maybe it naturally went viral. But it wasn't that. She thought that if she got Kris Jenner posting her little, jam jar, which did happen, remember, in the very early days, that the demand would be so great that it would immediately lead to a sellout.
Yes, and she did get that initially, but the problem was I don't think the products were very good in the first place. And when you go with the scarcity tactic, you really have to go with something that's, I think, more of not a consumable product in terms of like a non-food product. You need to get something that's like maybe a lipstick or, a water bottle or something that's limited edition that people can get behind. But the idea of sending this to celebrities and having it like naturally grow would have been much smarter than what she did. In fact, my suggestion to her would have always been is to package her jam, her spread or whatever, and go to a local farmer's market and sell your stuff there and get real feedback. Don't just think it's good. Get the market research in, because the problem with this field has always been it's wildly saturated. You can get the same thing she's selling for $10 to $12 at the store for $3 or $4. And so she should have really actually done her research here, but this is a rush hatchet job. And she gets a little bit far because of her title, but even her fans are getting bored with this. They're not buying this anymore. And this was always going to be the case. If your products aren't good, you can't just sustain it on your name as the Duchess of Sussex forever. And she's seeing the crash and burn here.
She really has, Brittany. And then it was panic stations. It was absolute panic stations because, of course, she realizes, oh God, and it's too late. It's always too late. I've launched my Instagram. I've printed my labels, but I cannot use this.
Oh man, and she couldn't even use the logo because the logo was so convoluted. The trademark office is like, we can't even tell where, I think it was the O was. They're like, we can't even tell where that is. And that's how bad her logo is. And you can tell she made this. It's totally like her cursive thing or whatever. And she didn't really go back to the drawing board. That was the problem. When it failed, when the trademark office rejected not only the name, but the logo, instead of rethinking the entire brand and going, okay, we were stupid. We pushed too far, too fast. Let's actually take a year. She should have taken a year to rejigger the entire thing and then come out with either As Ever or something else, and something that worked for the name. Because I feel like even As Ever doesn't really mesh with the brand, mesh with who she is. It's too whimsical for her. Like, all of this is some of the worst mess I've ever seen. And again, she hires good lawyers, some of the best. I'm sure they told her this, but she went ahead with American Riviera Orchard anyways, and the horrible logo. And then she was stuck in a disaster and then had to hastily redo everything. And we see the end result in As Ever being, I think, an absolute mess.
Of course it was. And then, because Meghan can never just admit that she's got something very wrong, there were these very odd explanations, Brittany, as to, well, no, I'd actually always wanted to call it As Ever, which we know was nonsense. And then she decides to go all in with Netflix.
Meghan bet that Netflix would be the booster rocket, but Netflix cares about hits that drive subscriptions. Merch is a sideshow. Proof? The show's QR code drove viewers to Netflix recipes, not to an As Ever cart. If the partner doesn't point traffic to your checkout, your partner isn't invested in your sell-through. Worse, product placement was minimal or misaligned. You're selling a consumer brand. You need on-screen repetition, shoppable moments, and a single, relentless call to action. Instead, we got a lifestyle montage with no conversion path. That's not a funnel, it's a sieve.
But what she missed the point massively when it came to this is actually it was a strategic error. Because for Netflix, this is a tiny part of their business, Brittany. It's a little add-on. What Netflix wants are great entertainment products or great documentaries or great dramas or great comedies which are going to sell their subscription. That is what they want. She was sort of, she was sucked in, I guess is what I'm trying to say, by this Netflix spin, which is that, oh, you've been a bit of a disaster, actually. You know, your shows have been a bit of a disaster, but don't worry, we're launching this auxiliary department that is going to be focusing on selling like wine for Bridgerton or Squid Game t-shirts. Do you know what I mean? And you know, that's really important to our business, Meghan. And she believed it. And it was so stupid, Brittany, because actually, this doesn't matter for Netflix. The stakes for them are so low. Whereas for her, this is everything. And so what was most crazy, and this showed you that Netflix didn't really care about As Ever, and I stand by that. I really, really do. They do not give a damn about As Ever. They did care about With Love, Meghan. They would have liked that to be a success, but they don't give a damn about As Ever. Because, Brittany, the first series launches, and remember, it was delayed because of the Californian wildfires. The first series launches, she's still not live with the products. There is no direct match-up with product placement within the filming because she didn't have the product available. So sure, she's got her flower sprinkles, but aside from that, it doesn't have the packaging or anything like that. And nothing was on sale, Brittany. So when she actually did have the eyeballs that hate watching, remember, of the first series, very briefly it made a couple of the main top 10 lists. which we know series 2 hasn't done, she had nothing. She had nothing on sale. She had nothing to pitch. And honestly, if Netflix really cared about As Ever, they would never have allowed that to happen. And it showed actually that Meghan thinks she's a business brain, but in fact, she is a business disaster.
Yes, I love it on Shark Tank. I think Mark Cuban coined it. She's a wantapreneur, not an entrepreneur. And the problem with the Netflix partnership is that Netflix is, because although subscriptions are how they make the vast majority of their money, at some point they're going to reach market saturation and they're not going to get as many customers as frequently. And so they are trying to build up their licensing and branding empire so that they can capitalize off successful shows. So they're thinking, well, if Meghan does have a product that she can sell attached to the show, we'll give her a little bit of seed money and we'll see what happens. And of course, the whole thing, basically giving it to Meghan and having her be in charge of it, just goes to show, number one, Netflix does not care, because obviously this is the worst branding and marketing I've ever seen. Her branding and marketing is still horrible. It remains. She still doesn't even show like she sent out an email yesterday for her brand, and it's her allegedly making, I don't know if it's crepes or shortbread cookies or whatever. And she's not even showing any of her products. Like, it's an empty plastic bag. And so it's like, this is branding and marketing 101, and she's still missing the mark. And Meghan is over-exaggerating her partnership with Netflix in this instance. But Netflix doesn't really care if this thing is a success or not. It was an experiment. I mean, if I was Netflix, I would have demanded that any products she sell are in her show. They didn't get the benefit of the branding and marketing with the show at all, because she doesn't feature any of her products except for, say, flour sprinkles. You can buy those anywhere off Amazon. So this is one of the worst disasters I've ever seen. Brittany, and it just keeps getting worse.
100%, because Brittany, in the second series of With Love, Meghan, there is literally a QR code which appears on screen for, I think it was literally about 2 seconds at the end of each episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought maybe that's the moment. Maybe that's the moment where they are going to be sending people to the As Ever website. But no, it went to the Netflix Tadam website, because that's what Netflix cares about, and it's where you can get the recipes for free. So there's nothing even within the show which is connecting to As Ever whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a crime against marketing and branding to do it this way. And when it comes to even the show, I was talking about when the show was launching, and it's like we had too many brand names out there. So we have As Ever, American Riviera Orchard, With Love, Meghan. There's like Confessions of a Female Founder. There's The Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle. Like, she's so scatterbrained. I feel like she vomited content this year.
Archewell, like what does Archewell mean within this? I couldn't agree more. And this is someone, Brittany, who cares much more about presentation than actually doing the work. That has always been the case with Meghan Markle. And I think it is a complete mess. Her whole brand, and I'm not just talking about As Ever here, I'm talking about her brand as a human being, is in total crisis. Because what does she represent? And you're so right. In the midst of all of this, deciding, oh, I've got to do another podcast because I'm really embarrassed that Spotify dropped me, described me as an effing grifter, and Archetypes actually was pretty bad. So I've got to do another podcast, and I'm going to launch it at the exact moment with all of this going on.
The math says no billionaire. Let's kill the myth with math. Valuations follow revenue, margins, and growth, not vibes. Typical crowded pantry CPG brands might fetch to 2.5 times annual revenue if they're growing fast with decent margins. To sniff a $1B valuation at, say, a 4 times multiple, you'd need about $250 a year in sales. Sustainably, selling a $9 jar of jam? $250 million. Divided by $9 equals to 27 1.8 million jars per year, every year, before returns, promos, and wholesale cuts. Add teas, mixes, and wine. Still commodity categories with brutal margins and incumbents that own shelf space, logistics, and retail relationships. You're not compounding a moat, you're renting attention. Now layer on brand headwinds, scattered naming, weak differentiation, and inconsistent messaging. Even if you charmed 250,000 diehard fans into buying $200 a year, that's $50M. 1/5 of the way, with zero room for churn, costs, or retail margins. The numbers don't add up, and in luxury, perceived scarcity needs prestige. Here, the positioning is unclear and the copy reads amateur. That scares money, not attracts it.
It made zero sense. And Brittany, again, it's like if the woman had any ideas, I could have told her, you'd launch a podcast about the launch of your brand. Do you know what I mean? Call it as ever. I don't think it would have been a hit, but at least it would have connected to what she was doing. Because all of a sudden she was trying to promote a new podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, and Brittany, that failed so badly that she actually had to concede that it was axed. So with Archetype, she's never actually admitted it was axed. With Confessions of a Female Founder, by the end of the last series, when she did that special bonus episode with Tina Knowles, she conceded it was over. And Brittany, that's because it had effectively dropped out of the top 100 of every podcast chart in the world. That is appalling for a woman who has the publicity and marketing power that mere mortals could only dream of.
Yes, because Harry and Meghan, and particularly Meghan, I think, confuses what her brand actually is, which is that it's a brand of toxicity and negativity. So what actually sells for her are conversations like ours, headlines, those sorts of things. That's what sells, but she can't actually convert any of that into something positive, you could say, like As Ever or American Riviera Orchard or Confessions of a Female Founder or whatever, because people don't like her and she can't seem to accept that. And so she's constantly trying to rejigger everything and constantly trying something new and new and new and new. And the problem with that is it's too much. Again, we've had, I feel like I call it content vomit. She just vomited content all over us without a plan or a strategy or anything. And we see the epic disaster of that when her second series launched, because it launched the same day, which she didn't know, that Taylor Swift was going to announce her engagement. And Meghan launched her show and her brand. And I feel like there was something else that came out that day too. On August 26th, she dropped everything. Well, if you had actually strategized for that, you could have kind of strung it out, because instead of dropping it all on one day, if a bigger headline comes in, Meghan's out of the news cycle totally. It totally bombed, in part because of Taylor Swift's announcement. And this is why you have strategies in play. There is no strategy to anything. I'm a historian by training, and even I know this is a mess from a marketing standpoint. And she has all the resources in the world to have a very successful business, but she can't listen to anyone but herself. And I hate to say it, but Meghan, honey, you're not a businesswoman. You're just not good at this. You need to figure out something else or listen to the experts, and they can make you look like a success. You doing it yourself just proves you can't do it in the first place.
You are no female founder. It's embarrassing. And indeed, I find it more embarrassing now when she talks about the fact that, I do everything. It's like, we know.
Yeah, we know. We see it.
It's like when she was saying in the Bloomberg interview recently, Brittany, she was saying, I don't think all the other celebrities write their copy. And it's like, for good reason, because I read that copy, Brittany, and it's like a 16-year-old schoolgirl. It would be sweet if it was written by a 16-year-old schoolgirl. Do you know what I mean? A 40-something-year-old female founder. Oh, it's just awful.
She had an extra space recently too in her copy.
Oh my God.
And you could totally tell it because it's in the margin. And I was like, it was one in. And I was like, oh, there's a space.
And by the way, this may be controversial. I hate the calligraphy. I hate it. I can never read it. I totally agree with Jan Moir that there's something quite threatening to it. And I don't like it. It's sinister calligraphy. It's sinister calligraphy. Maybe I'm just not a calligraphy man, Brittany, but I do not like it. Now,
could this be salvaged? Only with a ruthless reset. One brand name, one promise, One hero product that's actually proprietary, with obsessive product market fit testing, pro operators, wholesale strategy, celebrity alliances that stick, and a show that sells, not just shows. But none of that turns a jumble of pantry staples into a unicorn. The billionaire storyline depended on velocity, virality, and trust. What we saw was confusion, delay, and fatigue. Bottom line, you can't brand your way to $1 billion with commodity goods and a split-focus media vehicle. The dream was built on sand, and the tide just came in. Agree? Disagree? Drop your take below. If you want the deeper dive on the numbers and the Netflix calculus, it's in the after show. Subscribe and don't miss it.